Good morning, everyone. I'm going to read from Whispers from Eternity, Yogananda's book of poems and prayer demands. And this is titled simply A Prayer, received after a great test of God. In disease or in health, in success or in failure, in poverty or in prosperity, in joy or in sorrow, in disaster or in safety, in life or in death, I stand immutably, unalterably, unshakably loyal, devoted and firmly loving Thee, my Heavenly Father, forever, forever, and forever. Perhaps a prayer well worth memorizing. As I was reading that, I was thinking, did Yogananda write that or did Jesus write that? Because all the great saints, all of us can have that same experience. Well, Palm Sunday, what a joy to celebrate. And we get to tell these same stories year after year. And yet there's always something new to learn from these stories. Because even though the stories are the same, we keep changing and growing, and we can learn new things from these stories and learn new lessons and take new kernels of truth and wisdom to practice in our own lives, to bring them to life in our own lives. And I was talking with some friends, asking people, what do you think of when you think of Palm Sunday? And a lot of people were like, oh, the anticipation, the excitement of Easter's coming. And I think a lot of us maybe feel that. The oratorio is coming on Friday, the great concert. And we feel that excitement and that anticipation. But I was thinking also of that excitement and anticipation that people were feeling on that first Palm Sunday. It's an interesting drama that's unfolding. Jesus has been teaching for a couple of years, and several times he's gone into Jerusalem and inspired people with his teachings and miracles, but also invoking the anger and the criticism of the scholars and priests of the day. And so there's this mix of anticipation. Passover is here, and everyone's wondering, will he come to Jerusalem? And if he does, what will happen? And just before this, Jesus has performed the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. And many people witness this. The word has gotten out. And so when he does come into Jerusalem, there's this incredible celebration and excitement and anticipation. Many of his disciples are feeling, and his devotees are feeling, that now is the time when he's finally going to express his true power. And some of them are expecting that maybe that expression is going to come in a worldly way, overthrowing the Roman rule. And so there's this interesting drama that's unfolding. And I was thinking it's not unlike the drama that we find ourselves in today, in today's world. There's this interesting mix of excitement and anticipation of this new age, and there's some confusion and criticism and disappointment and fear and all of these different experiences. And like many of the characters in this story of Palm Sunday, many of us find ourselves sort of tossed about on these waves of circumstances and experiences. And yet, Yogananda said, circumstances are neutral. Circumstances are neutral. Okay, it's our reactions to them that make them either good or bad, happy or sad. And that seems simple enough. Circumstances are neutral. And yet, why is it so hard to really feel that truth, that circumstances are neutral? What is it that gets in the way of that? Because we can say that and we say, oh yeah, that's true. That's a higher truth. But in our day-to-day reality, circumstances don't feel neutral. And I was talking with a friend of mine recently about another friend of ours. I'd been talking with her and she'd been sharing like different problems and situations that she was up against, and I was feeling like, yeah, that's pretty neutral. That seems you can do that. That's doable. I could see what the solutions were and it seemed, but then why is it so hard when it's my problems to feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this. It's neutral. We can deal with it, Isn't that funny? And this friend of mine I was sharing with, just reflecting, and my friend very wisely said, maybe get rid of the thought of my. It's that thought of my problems, my circumstances, always relating everything back to our little egoic self that gets us caught and makes it difficult to see circumstances as neutral. We're taking everything too personally. Even things that are happening in the world sometimes, we're taking it personally and we're relating it back to our own little self, or we're perceiving it from that level of consciousness, of that ego, of that little self. And that's really the example that Jesus gives us through all of these circumstances that are going to be unfolding from Palm Sunday, the crucifixion, Easter, resurrection, is how to relate and respond to what happens to us in life as children of God. To relate from that soul perspective, that higher consciousness, and to really live in that understanding, I and my Father are one. There's no sense of separation. There's nothing to fear. It's all one reality. It's all God's drama. It's all God's dream. Jesus said to his disciples when he found them, "Follow me." And they did. They dropped everything. They left their jobs, their families, and they followed him. But it's not just for them that he said that. It's for all of us. Follow me. Every day, in every moment, we have this choice. What are we following? Are we following the example of the masters? Or are we following the example of the world or of our little egoic likes and dislikes? Because we can so easily get caught. And I was thinking, all the characters and citizens of Jerusalem, we can think of them like our own mental citizens, all of our habits and tendencies and thoughts. And we can ask ourselves, what are we following when change comes, when challenging times come? Who are we going to follow? Are we going to follow the priests and scholars in their anger and their criticism and their doubt and their fear? Are we getting caught in our limited expectations, like some of the disciples, that everything will come from a worldly victory? Are we hanging our hopes on that, on rearranging the mud puddle, so to speak? Or are we following Jesus? Are we following that example of complete acceptance of everything that comes as coming from God? I and my Father are one. We have a choice in every moment, in every circumstance. What will we follow? And as it says in this reading, Jesus' life is, as some people say, the greatest story ever told. It's a great story. That's why we tell it over and over and over again. And if you haven't come and listened to the oratorio this Friday at 7 o'clock, I'll just put a little plug in because it really just lays out the whole drama in song. It's so beautiful and so powerful. But we're all living a great drama. We all have a great story in our lives that's unfolding. And why is that? Because it's God's drama, really. It's all of his dream drama. And we all have our part to play. And that's really what I think we can take from this story this week, is how do we play our part? And the example that Jesus gives us and how we can play our part in the drama. Because we can't get out of it. It's just what's happening. So how do we face what's unfolding? So the first thing I want to touch on, one of the most powerful examples that Jesus gives us, is to trust in the divine plan and to fully accept the divine plan. You think of what Jesus faces in this coming week, and yet, what does he say? Thy will be done. Thy will, not mine, Lord. I heard a story recently about a man who was hiking in a canyon, and as he was hiking along, the ground beneath him fell away and he tumbled down the ravine. And luckily there was a tree branch sticking out, and he grabbed on and was able to hang on there, but he's hanging there over the abyss with no way to save himself. And so he calls out, "Is there anyone up there who can help me?" And this booming voice answers, "It is I, your Lord. I will help you, but you must do as I say." So of course, the man is completely relieved. "Yes, of course, I'll do anything you say. Just tell me what to do." And the voice responds, "Just let go, my child, and trust." And there's a long silence. Until finally the man shouts, "Is there anyone else up there?" And we laugh, but why do we laugh? Because there's part of us that can relate, right? That it's hard to trust. It's hard to trust sometimes, and we get caught. We get caught thinking, maybe there's another way. Maybe there's another God's will. Maybe, we get caught thinking we're seeing what's happening in our lives or in the world on the level of the ego, and we think, well, this can't be God's will. Fill in whatever your this is, right? There's always, in our minds, we get caught thinking maybe there's some exception and we got to work the system and maybe there's another way around. Nope. There's nothing that's happening outside the will of God. And the more we can realize that and live in that realization, the better we can play the part we're here to play in this world. I've been reminded recently, it keeps coming up again and again, of what Ananda Ma said to some of her devotees. They came to her all worried about what was unfolding in the world and the suffering and why is this happening, and what did she say? Don't you think He who created the universe knows how to run it? I mean, write that down for yourself. It's a good reminder. Don't you think He who created the universe knows how to run it? To trust instead of doubt. To choose trust. It's a continuous choice. And again, we have circumstances that come up, that challenge us. But keep coming back to that example of Jesus. Thy will, not mine, Lord. To trust that whatever is unfolding is the divine will. And the more we can attune ourselves to that and cooperate with that and surrender to that, the better everything goes. The second powerful lesson from the life of Jesus is his complete surrender and self-offering. Again, we think about him coming into Jerusalem knowing everything that's about to unfold. And he went anyways, willingly, with deep self-offering. Nothing that the masters do in their lives is for themselves. It says we read every week, for those of you that are new, we read every week something called the Festival of Light, which is a beautiful ceremony written by Swami Kriyananda, beautiful poetic expression of the soul's journey, of the whole drama, really. And it says so beautifully, captures this selfless offering that the masters make. Greater can no love be than this. From a life of infinite joy and freedom in God, willingly to embrace limitation, pain, and death for the salvation of mankind. Such ever has been the sacrifice of the great masters for the world. We have to remember also, yes, the masters are great and they're offering themselves, but they're doing it, they're coming not to show how great they are, and not solely to offer themselves, but also to show us, by example, our own true potential and our own path to soul freedom is through offering ourselves, giving ourselves completely. It can be easy to think, oh, well, he was a master, of course he could do that. And one of Yogananda's disciples once said that to him when he was facing something difficult, Bernard. He said, well, of course, you can do it, you're a master. But what did Yogananda say to him? What do you think made me a master? Think about that. What made him a master? What made Jesus a master? That willingness, that complete willingness to give everything to God, to trust completely, and to offer everything. I heard a story recently about a king in ancient India, and he was a great warrior, had conquered many foes, had this massive kingdom that he was ruling over, but he also had deep devotion. And one day, a Swami came, Swami Ramdas, came with his disciples and visited the kingdom. And so he gave him a wonderful meal, him and his disciples. And after the meal, the king wrote a little note on a piece of paper and folded it up and gave it to the Swami. And the disciples thought, this is kind of odd, but the Swami kind of knew what was going on. And so he opened the note and read it out loud. And the king had written, I offer my kingdom to you. Everything is yours. And so the Swami, playing along, said, well, what will you do now that you've given me your kingdom? And the king said, whatever you ask of me. And so again, kind of playing along, the Swami gets up and says, let's go beg for alms, and he leaves. And the king, without hesitating, follows behind, and they go out begging for alms. And the Swami, seeing his offering, his dedication, his sincerity, says, well, I don't really need a kingdom myself. Why don't you, on my behalf, continue to rule this kingdom? Rule over this kingdom and do it for God. And there's such a beautiful reminder in this that we all have a part to play in this world. But the very best way that we can play that part is by giving everything to God. We don't lose anything by giving it to God. All we lose is that ego identity, that little sense of I and me and mine that keeps us caught, that keeps us in suffering. Swami Kriyananda recommended that every night we should build a mental bonfire and offer up to the spiritual eye, to that mental bonfire, every attachment, every success, every failure, every thought, every desire, everything. It's a beautiful practice. It's really at the heart of all of our meditation practices, that we withdraw from our ego identity, our senses, and our engagement with the world on that level. We withdraw into the spine and to the spiritual eye and offer everything back to its source. Offer everything back to God. There's such a deep sense of peace and freedom that comes from living from that place of self-offering. But we have to try it out. Don't take my word for it. We have to put these things into practice. And the last thing I wanted to touch on from Jesus' life, his example of how to play our part, is with compassion for others. I think if we could pick one word or one quality that we often come back to when thinking about Jesus and his life, is that compassion, that love for everyone. No exceptions. I mean, just meditating on that thought, love without any exceptions. Think about the people that he reached out to, that he preached, that he healed. They were not people that were well liked and well loved in society. Even in his final days, he didn't suffer for himself. He didn't grieve for himself, but he grieved for those who couldn't receive what he came to offer. And even on the cross, his deep love and compassion, even for those who put him on that cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Well worth meditating on and taking deeply. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And more than that, practicing it. This is an extreme example, but it gets our attention, and it gives us something to aspire to and to remember, to reawaken that potential for love that is in each one of us. Sri Yukteswar said we can't take one step on the spiritual path without awakening the natural love of the heart. And we have to start wherever we are. So maybe we can't love the most difficult person in our lives, but maybe we can forgive that person who cuts us off in traffic. Or maybe we can be a little more patient with that person who's just really not helpful on the other end of that 1-800 number that we just called. Just wherever we're at, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. To just be patient, to see that everyone is playing their part. Jyotish and Devi did a beautiful weekend a couple weekends ago celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, and there was a Q&A, and they told this story about a time when they received a very critical letter, a letter criticizing both of them, and they decided not to say anything about it, and they went to this gathering at Swami Kriyananda's, and just a few moments, and Swami looked at them and said, "What's wrong?" And so they went in the other room to discuss. And Jyotish and Devi were sharing with Swami about this letter and, what if we've done anything wrong, please tell us, we don't know what to do. And Swami just said, you're doing the best you can for who you are. And then they asked, well, what about this person who wrote this critical letter? Should we say anything to them? And Swami said, they're doing the best they can for who they are. And then he smiled a little and said, and I'm doing the best I can for who I am. And it's such a sweet story, but I think we can really take that to heart and practice that this week. Everyone is doing the best they can for who they are, ourselves included. To practice that compassion, that acceptance, that understanding of others as we're navigating this great divine drama of our lives, of this world, of this planet at this time, and to know that everyone's playing their part to the best of their ability for who they are and for where they are. And as we celebrate Palm Sunday and Easter and this great drama in the life of Christ, to just take it as a reminder of how we want to play our part and how we want to live this great life that's been given to us, to live it with compassion for others, to live it with complete trust and faith in God's will, and to offer everything back to God. God bless.
Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed he that cometh in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed he that cometh in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna in the highest. Sing Hosanna to the Lord. Sing out Hosanna in the highest. Sing Hosanna to the Lord. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna. Sing out in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna. Sing out in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna. Sing out in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna. Sing out in the name of God. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lord. Sing out Hosanna, sing out Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lord.
him not fill his cup here from this well, from living water sipped in the silence, in spirit and in truth, break ego's spell.
Though fallen deep in sin, by men abandoned, if longing for his grace, truth be your guide, he can redeem you from every evil. Friend, only think of him. Walk by his side. Though fallen deep in sin,